Everyone, it's afuabayayi here from Team Bayayi, and I'm so glad to be going live. It has been a minute since we've done a live on our channel, but this is a really special one that I'm super excited about. Those of you who follow us on YouTube, you will know that we did a video called The Importance of Learning, or your child learning a language. I am joined today by a lovely lady called Nazarene, who is an educational enthusiast. And we've had quite a few conversations on this topic. So I've got a number of questions to ask you and a number of things to talk about, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Yeah. So it was extremely good. If you haven't watched it, make sure you watch it. I remember having a conversation with Michael, who is going to be joining me this evening, as a follow-up to that. And he was like, you know, you needed to be giving people tips. You needed to be recommending like what they can do, what resources they can use and that kind of stuff. And he said, I think this requires a part 2. And I never forgot. Michael is somebody who was born and raised in the UK just like me. And somehow he managed to not only learn how to speak our mother tongue, which is Twi, I'm Ghanaian, but he also learned how to read it and write it. And I just always remember being incredibly inspired by him. He has not only been able to learn, but to also teach his children. It's just an incredibly impressive story. How's it in Ghana?
Hey, Ghana's treating us well, treating the family well. And just the way...
Don't mind me.
The spouses are intruding. The spouses are intruding. Oh, that's so funny. Shona, how's it going, girl? So how is it in Ghana this evening?
Hey, you know what? It is remarkably cold out here. I think we're bubbling around
freezing.
30 degrees.
Yeah.
You know, let me just...
Only you guys in the UK, just roll your eyes with me. Just join me in rolling your eyes.
Roll them big.
You know what? You have to say, with that Sensei jumper though, you are representing.
Hey, come on now. Africa. Yes. I had to, especially for today's live. I had to.
Hello, everyone tuning in, both on Instagram and YouTube. Hello. My name is Michael Ecole Richardson. I was born in the UK many moons ago, and I am the third of 4 children to the late Thomas Boy Richardson and Grace Richardson. So I was born in the UK, lived probably about the first couple of years there, and then we moved back to Ghana for about 4 years. So I returned back when I was 6 years old, and lived in the UK ever since from there. So whilst we were in the UK, I was told that, you know, we could speak Fanti a little bit, and sort of from there came back to the UK, and that was really it. So started living life in the UK, and at home always spoke Fanti, but we always replied back in English. So we could understand it a bit. So when it came to houseworks, like, you know, go and tidy up your room, you know, go and put some rice on the fire. Fast forward a few years, I remember you used to go to Ghana, you see the family, you greet and everything, and then you sort of sit and sort of enjoy the time, maybe with your cousins. But that was sort of our interaction with Ghana, going once every few years and so on. I think I got to the age of 23 and I decided that, you know what, I'm going to go to Ghana as an adult by myself. So this time, no more, we love the uncles and aunties, but, you know, we wanted to go as adults for ourselves. Yeah. And on that trip, it was around 2003, I took a friend of mine who had never been to Africa before. So on that trip, I was like his guide. I was like his, yeah, you know what, come with me. I know a bit of Fanti, I can get by, you know, I won't get ripped off by the locals or anything. Hey, and you know, we had a good time. We had a really good time going up and down. And on one of our excursions, we went to my hometown. So I was there telling, you know, this is the family history. And, you know, I always said to him, like, if the world went wrong for me, like, this is my hometown. I can come back and claim a bed here on my father's name, and, you know, the world will be good to me. So we went there, met some of my uncles and aunties, and some of my cousins were there at the time. So they showed up, and I remember they were talking, happy to see us, of course. I'm sure they wanted a little something for their pockets as well. But we were just in good spirits. And they were talking primarily in Fanti. And, my friend was there, and he was asking me, Michael, what are they saying? So at this time, my Fanti was not that good. I could probably get the gist of the conversation, but then it would take me a bit of time to translate it, tell him. At the same time, the conversations moved forward.
Yeah.
So it was like having a translator who knew 5% of the language. And they said something that was really funny at a particular point. And I wanted to say something, but I just felt like my command of Fanti just wasn't good enough to say it the way I wanted it to come out. So I said, you know what, do I say it in English? And I know I can say it the way I want to, but everyone's speaking Fanti. Do I say it in Fanti? I know it sounds wrong or rubbish, or do I just say nothing? I said, you know what, we've come here as adults, and I need to say it in the way I feel comfortable and speak. So I said it in English. And it sort of killed the moment. It killed the joke. My cousins stopped. One of them turned around and said to us in Fanti, it's like, in Canada, mawa ho, which basically translates like, we don't say it that, like we don't speak English here. And for me, that was like a shot across the bows. And for me, awakening moment. That was like, I'd come home. There I was, the tour guide to a good friend of mine, showing him Ghana. I've come to my hometown, to my family home, and I wasn't accepted. Now, I'm not sure if he meant it in malice or if he just said it as a flippant comment, but it said, it woke me up, and it said to me that, you know what, I need to speak my mother tongue. I need to learn a language, because, in the UK, we all know that, okay, it's our home to a certain extent, but we know we're not from there. We're black people. So when someone says where you from, you can say London, but then when they say no, where you really from?
Come through.
You can't say South London.
Yeah.
Sumner Road. No, you have to tell them somewhere. And I always knew I was from Ghana, but now I've come home and I'm not Ghanaian. So I'm like, where am I? And I said, no, you know what? I need to learn my language from there. So that was the awakening moment for me. On that trip, strangely enough, I met Abena, and we started conversing. And one thing I always admired about her was she could always speak the language. I mean, she was fluent. She could flow like idioms, proverbs, anything. She knew, like she could speak with the street ladies. Yeah. And I was like, one thing that really, really inspired me. And I said to myself, you know what? Whatever happens, we need to make sure the children can speak the language. So as our courtship pursued into marriage, and then, the children were on their way, I said, I think when I knew Asada was coming, I said to myself, I need to speed this up. I need to do something about it, because I already made that vow to say that, we need to speak our mother tongue in our house. Children going through that same situation that I had. And from there, I was like, you know what? He's coming. It's probably about 5 months, 6 months to go, and I still can't speak it as well as I like. And I just went into overdrive at that moment to try to learn the language. So fast forward a few years, a few months, Asada came, and we just started incorporating it as the mother.
So stop there. Don't give too much of that just yet. So with that being the case, how you said, with we're from Africa, you and I are from Ghana, we speak English at home, our parents allowed us to respond in English, which is what I experienced as well. What do you think is the issue with Africans? Because I feel like this is only an issue with Africans. Like when I see Turkish, all different types of Asians, even though they have their children in this country, or even Europeans, to be honest, Polish or, other types of Europeans, their children will still know how to speak the language. So what do you think is the issue when it comes to Africans?
You know what? I think it happens with all groups to some extent. But amongst Africans, it seems to be quite disproportionate. And one thing I would say to people is like, you know what, like you said, how many French people do you know living abroad in the UK or even anywhere around the world who don't teach their children to speak French? The same, like you're saying, with the Turkish, wherever they go, they are proud enough to say, you know, come what may, this is who you are. And because of that, you need to know the absolute basics to connect you back home. And that's your language. I remember Marcus Garvey said that saying, you know, a people without knowledge of themselves are like a tree without roots. And we seem to disassociate our language and the importance of it as it being a sort of a gateway back home and that connection. And I think, to me, that's like the major problem. I remember growing up, there was one friend we had who was Portuguese. And I remember around that time, you know, in the 80s, they used to say this thing that, oh, you know what, don't teach your children two languages at the same time, it'll confuse them. And I remember once speaking to my friend's mum, and she said, I don't care what they say. Like okay, my Portuguese accent's terrible, but imagine a lady saying in a Portuguese accent.
In a Portuguese accent, yeah.
You know, I'll teach him, I don't care what they say. And she just challenged it and just decided, okay, what happens? He needs to know where he's from and to speak his language. And I don't think many of our parents, many Africans do that. And I think there are many that sort of stem from it, but basically it's a lack of pride in self.
Even like at the moment with Afro beats and all that kind of stuff, like, you know, being African is almost trending, but it's almost a caricature of, you know, the actual African. Do you know what I mean? Like, what is actually African? And when I'm talking to somebody who lives in Ghana and they're speaking Tree, like it goes deep. Like the Tree goes so deep, I get lost a bit. Or when I'm listening to certain songs, for example.
There are certain things in a language you would never fully grasp. Like, for instance, if you can learn to speak Tree and be fluent living in the UK, but when you come back home and you mix it with the locals who are local, there will be a bit of a disconnect. You know, you wouldn't have it, you wouldn't understand 100% of everything you say. So there is that understanding. But I think what's happened, especially with those in the diaspora, speaking our mother tongues, is because not enough of them speak it, they haven't even developed a way of speaking, say, Chi, Fanti, Ga, Ewe, Yoruba, Igbo, which is specifically like a Londoner or specifically like someone from the UK. So when you go back home and you say it with an English accent, they're like, oh, the way you say it is funny. But there are over 100,000 Ghanaians in the UK.
Yeah.
And if all of them speak their language, they would have their own accent and people would know and appreciate their accent. Almost like when you're in America. Someone from New York is different than someone in Texas.
True.
Someone from Texas is different from someone from California. But because we've lost the language so quickly over one and possibly two generations, you know, we seem to think, oh, if you don't sound like someone who was born and raised with that typical tongue. So that's one issue. I mean, how did I learn the language? I mean, long and short, it started with a mindset. And for me, having that fire of not wanting my children to go through what I went through, to be confused about whether they're British or Ghanaian, I didn't want that. And I think that was forever the burning desire for me. And to say that, you know what, luckily my wife was here who was, you know, a step ahead, and I didn't want to be the outsider. I didn't want to be the guy who, mommy and the children are speaking Tree, and daddy, let's just speak to me. And then I made a declaration to others. So I told them that, you know what, I want to learn to speak Tree, and I'm giving myself 6 months. I'm giving myself a year. So all those around me, my siblings, my parents knew, my uncles and aunties knew, and any Ghanaian who knew me well knew that I was trying to speak Tree. And, you know, I had a Minkabrofo, which literally translates to I don't speak English. So any opportunity you had to speak to me in Tree, no, initially I couldn't get to deep conversation. It was just the greetings, how are you? There's different greetings for different times of the day and for whether it's a man, a woman, a brother, and so on. And just practicing those with people was the first thing, and just making that declaration. So I couldn't hide anymore. So you know, people were accountable. That was something that I did. I remember I knew it had to be a lifestyle change. And one of the things I started doing was listening to Ghanaian radio online. My way to work where, I might have, this was probably pre-YouTube, where I might have listened to the radio or LBC or something like that. I'll listen to a Ghanaian radio station on the way in and I'll just be listening to the words, trying to make sense of the conversation. Sometimes I'll get it wrong, but it'll help me. And then other things I'll do, I'll listen to the old High Life songs. I used to like the old High Life songs because they would speak slower, or they'll sing the songs slower.
True.
And there was always somebody who understood the songs. If they can't teach, at least they can tell you what the song was about, like Sikanya Moja, and then the idioms and the comparisons within the song.
Yeah.
So things like that, things I started to do to change some of my habits. I had a friend once who was French, came to the UK, couldn't speak a word of English, got a job in like one of these Starbucks coffee places, just people taking orders. And I remember they told me they couldn't understand what they were saying, but they wanted to learn English so bad, they just threw themselves in the deep end. And that's where I got to. I just got to that stage where you're laughing at me, but you laughing at me, if I take that on board, I'm going to be the one who doesn't know how to speak the language.
So
and it's
true.
going to impact whilst you laugh and go about your way, doing as you will. So it's definitely important to surround yourself around people who are there to encourage you.
Your parents spoke to you in Tree and you responded in English. So you at least had some understanding of what the language is. But what about someone who is literally starting from scratch?
My advice is it's the motivation. It's the motivation. I think you have to ask yourself the why. Why do you want to do it? For me, if tomorrow I woke up and I say I wanted to learn Russian, or I wanted to learn Goza or Zulu, what's my motivation? What's going to keep me going when I hit the wall and it all just sounds like noise in my ears? And I think if the person learning a language from absolute scratch can ask themselves that question and give themselves a good why, I think that's probably like 70-80% of the battle. Because what sometimes even starting with a bit of knowledge of the language is sometimes more dangerous. They say the person with a little bit of knowledge is more dangerous than someone who knows nothing. Because at least when you're on a clean slate, you have a good teacher, you can get going. But I had a bit of Fanti, and Fanti is actually quite different from Chi as you start to get into it. And for me, it was confusing me a lot more than I felt like if I didn't know Chi at all.
Which if I wanted to learn French, I can go online. There's Duolingo, there are apps, you can get French tutors. This is one of the things that we struggle with when it comes to African languages. What would you say about that?
Okay, so at the time when I was learning, I remember there was an app called Inchia app at the time. And that was the only one at the time. I remember it was on Apple only. I was an Android guy at the time, so I had to go and get an iPod to buy an iPod, put it on, just so I can use the app.
You see the dedication. Wow.
Hey, I'm telling you, I wasn't messing around. But I think over the years, a lot more things have become available. So I'll say one of the things which I used at the time was the Tree Bible. I remember there were apps which would give you a verse and it would also play the audio for you. So as you play a particular verse, it will show you the tree on one side and you'll be listening to it. And some of them even have the tree and the English at the same time, so you can have a direct comparison. And it would help my pronunciation, it would teach me new words, and I'll have a little notebook at the side and I'll make notes. So that's my own personal dictionary, and I'll go through the words and make sure I knew how to spell them and different things. So, but when I taught the children, I had to create something for them because I felt the resources available at the time weren't child friendly enough to make them want to learn. Wherever you are, I'll say try to find a good language school with good experienced teachers who can help.
There's so much available now, to be honest, that we actually don't have much of an excuse. YouTube is like, it's a gold mine, in terms of resources that are free as well. And I think what you've demonstrated is just the degree of dedication that you had. How long would you say that it took you before you can say that you were confident?
Ooh, okay. So for me, I would say it was an ongoing process. I wouldn't say there was a particular point. I just said it was just incremental. From starting from the absolute basics to just greeting, just having family and friends, and it was me ciao, which is I greet you, and then the response, it's saying, oh, me pa cho me hunye, and then just from basic conversation. Sometimes I'll do that for about 2 or 3 weeks ago with different uncles and aunties, and then I'll learn something new and I'll add it to a new sentence, and I'll just keep incrementally getting to more complex dialogue. I remember there were certain times you get stuck. You know what you want to say in English, but it's stuck somewhere in that little tree part of your mind at the back. You can't quite get it. And then they'll be like, oh, just say it in English. So you say it in English, and then the person would help you phrase it in Chi.
Right.
So
okay.
I didn't really notice a point, but what I did notice was people would come to me and say, wow, you know what? Your Chi is getting really good. And I remember speaking to a few family members who could speak Chi, and they're like, Michael, some of the things you're saying, I don't understand. And at that point, I felt like, oh, I'm really making progress.
Some would say, okay, you have an advantage because you are married to a Ghanaian. The reality with many of us is that we are in interracial, multicultural, marriages. Myself, for example, I'm married to a Zimbabwean. So in the home, we speak English.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if African marries a French person, say French white person, mixed race relationship, I can guarantee you more times than not, they'll speak French.
True.
So it becomes all a case of desire, where it should be the opposite. They should be speaking 3 languages. They should be speaking your mother tongue. They should be speaking his mother tongue and be speaking English as an absolute basic. 2 generations from now, where would my children be? Like, would they know they were African?
Like sometimes an auntie or an uncle might say something or something would happen and you just both get it, like, because you've grown up with the culture, the language. And sometimes I think, man, I want my children to also understand why this would be funny, or why this would, do you know what I mean? Or why this is like the relevance of this, the significance of this. You want to be able to have that. And so I think it was Turkey that we went to, and they could speak Russian. They spoke Turkish, they spoke English. There was another one because, they had to learn because of, tourism and that type of thing. And this is quite common. The lady that teaches our children French, she's actually originally Portuguese, but she knows how to speak Portuguese. She knows how to speak French as well as English, So I think we can be quite lazy in this country because English is spoken everywhere.
It happens here at home, where people born and raised, grown up in a system here in Ghana at home, and they don't speak the Ghanaian language.
Really?
It's because there's no focus. Some people say to you, oh, it's better you learn Mandarin because it's a language of trade or whatever the reasoning may be. But at the end of the day, money is made through mindset. If you see your language as valuable and you learn it, there's always an opportunity to make money from it. I said to my children, look, when you guys become 11, 12 years old, you'll be fluent enough in Chi to be able to have your own private lessons online to teach other people.
Wow.
That's a language that isn't spoken by millions upon millions of people, but it can still generate him an income.
Yeah.
And that's because we see value in it. The Turkish people only speak in Russian because the tourists come and it's for financial gain only. But there are certain things which are intrinsic to us which you can't place a value on. And when it starts to be lost or gets eroded, it's like it's hard to get it back. I always say if the Egyptians didn't carve into the stones, into the walls, we wouldn't know their history. Yeah. And that's what it is. We need to keep that going and do whatever we can. And I think as parents now, I think when we were young, okay, we were victims of circumstance for whatever reason may be. It could have been goodwill, wanting the best, or just didn't have time, whatever the reason was in our homes. But we're now adults, and we are now making decisions for that next generation.
Yeah.
And if we make poor ones, they would suffer. If we make good ones or the right ones, they would benefit. And solely that's what it is. That's where I see it. Like, there are countries like the Netherlands, small country, population not that big, don't have many colonies, but they still speak their language. It's not necessarily financial, but it's about maintaining their heritage and their culture and their history. That's what it's about. And you can't put a price on it, because once it's gone, it's gone.
And it's so interesting what you said about placing value, because I work in events, and I remember there was a high-end hotel. It was a members club in central London, and they had the majority of their high-profile clients, the ones that came with the big money, were their Chinese clients. And so what they had done was they had sent their staff members to Mandarin school to learn Mandarin, so that they could essentially be accommodating to these clients who are coming in from, these, because they wanted their money. And I thought, wow, look at that, because those clients were not trying to learn English. Like, they were just, and when I went into the lift, so they have a lift for the staff members, there's different for the lift for the clients. They actually had posters inside the lift demonstrating how you greet them so that you don't disrespect them. I don't know if it's Chinese or Japanese now, but one of the two. And I thought, wow, look at the investment that they are making, because these people are so culturally proud that they're not trying to assimilate, into the British culture. They're just like, no, this is how we do things. This is, and because, they have demonstrated value for what they've got, this company, this British Central London company, are now finding ways to accommodate them. What steps did we take for the children to learn the language?
The primary rule was we were going to have Chi as the main language of the house.
Right.
So that was the first, the first commandment, I would say. And from there, the rest just followed. Around it were different things. And one thing I sort of found through my observations and experience was Chi, or your mother tongue, tended to be that thing that you were scolded in, or was the thing that was only spoken to you as and when it needed to be. Or, there was that understanding that, oh, okay, we speak it when we don't want other people to hear what we're saying. We didn't want those negative connotations around speaking your mother tongue. So we flipped the tables and we said, you know what, you would be rewarded in your mother tongue. When you do something good, more, why idea, more. And when you're getting chastised, we will chastise you in English, and we were very conscious about how we use the language. Even within Chi, there's ways you can use the language to be derogatory, self-derogatory about yourself.
Very true.
And certain things we won't speak about in the house, or they wouldn't be subjects of conversation, because we are our own worst enemies from that perspective if we speak that way. So there were a few steps which we put in place, and one of the things we did was to say, you know what, because regardless where you are, growing up in the UK, your children will want to speak English. You can't stop it. And we didn't want to stop it, but we wanted it to have its place. And if you wanted anything, you had to ask for it in Chi. Now, if you didn't know the word for it, by all means, we'll teach you the word. And then from then on, you had to ask for it in Chi. Because you stand over my shoulder and ask me in English, I would act like you weren't there.
Right.
So little things like that, we just decided to set a tone on and say, hey, you know what? We want you to understand that this is your mother tongue. To the point that I remember one time when I used to take the children out to some of my friends who weren't Ghanaian, they'll ask me, they'll be like, and they'll say in Chi, why doesn't Uncle speak Chi? Not knowing that he didn't know that they weren't Ghanaian or anything. But because he just assumed that because we speak Tree as the main language,
everyone else does. I'm learning myself to speak fluently. And I'm concerned that I'm going to teach my children like the incorrect way of pronouncing things or saying things because I'm not 100. Do you know what I mean on it? So I think sometimes that can be, I guess, an insecurity when it comes to learning alongside my children. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I always say, as long as you've got a big cup of humble pie, a big plate somewhere, and a nice sharp silver spoon to eat your humble pie with, you're good to go. Because I say things wrong all the time. And that's the point where they to me. They're like, Daddy, you're kind of say, which it basically says, oh, Daddy, we don't say it like that. We say it like this.
Right.
And I'm there like, oh, I get you, and I'm going to learn. So for me, it's going on that journey with them.
You learn not just how to speak it, all of you read it as well as write it. And I think, I don't know if this is true for other African languages, but I definitely know it's true when it comes to Ghanaian languages, that in terms of like reading it, there are so many Ghanaians who do not know how to read or write Tree.
It's more of a spoken language for better wants and needs. The whole alphabet is there, whole dictionaries are there, but people generally spend more time speaking it than actually sitting down to study it. Again, because I'm learning, not because grandma or mum and dad spoke to me in Tree, but because I want to study it and I want to be the best at it and for my children to be the best at it as possible. Again, I flip that hat and I say to myself, you know what? If my children went to school and said they were learning French, and I said, oh, so how do you write French? And they said, oh, I don't know. I just know how to speak it. They didn't teach us how to read or to write it. I would be like, who is your French teacher? I need to have a word with them. And the spoken word is very important. But there are certain things which can only be understood or can transcend time if you write it and if you read it. And those elements are important in other languages. Why isn't it important in ours? So it is there, but it's just people taking the time to study the education.
So Michael and Abner used to have a Saturday school in the UK before they decided that they wanted to relocate to Ghana, and it was called Destination Africa. They still do Destination Africa over there, and they also have it available online as well. So please do check them out. They have a YouTube channel. You guys actually did a DVD, a Tree DVD, which I still have and I still use. They did, and it was part 1 and part 2. So they've been on this for years, But I remember attending one of your sessions, and we have a phrase that says "medase" in Tree, which means I thank you. And when I read the Tree and the way it was broken down, it actually is written "Meda wase," I lay beneath you, which I guess is the physical, representation of like, I guess you're paying homage to somebody, or you are, you're being prostrate before someone, you're showing respect. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, had I not read it, I would have never understood the depth of what was being said. We just said, oh, medase. But to understand that, no, you're saying medawase, I lay beneath you, right? It was just like, wow, and so I feel like when you know how to read the language, it adds a dimension. Like, this is one of those discussions that you have to like listen back again, take notes, write points, and think of how you're going to now strategize and implement. But I think what you guys are an example of is that it can be done, and there is no excuse. There is literally no excuse. If it's something you've made up your mind to do, it can be achieved, So thank you for exemplifying that. That's been really valuable.
Well, F, you know what? We've got one more tip, but we're going to be starting all these tips on our YouTube channel. So,
okay.
Go on there. But when you're doing stuff simultaneously, you know how you can easily get carried away. Say if you're teaching a child how to add and you just do it in English, then that child can only remember it in English.
Yes.
Try if you do it in both languages, because it helps the two of you, the parent I've never added in Chi, and the child who it's all new to.
And we have someone who said she's so proud of you, Adancia, for what you've done. Another mum, happy fun learning done. I know she's a British Ghanaian mum. And she was like, we have work to do for you, sis. We do. We have work to do.
And again, in closing on this side, I just wanted to say, you know what? I wanted my story to be an encouragement for people, for those who started with a little bit, started with nothing, thought it's not possible. The children are here now. I've got work. I've got this. I've got that. Being pulled left, right, and center. I didn't want it to be like you're getting beaten up, but I wanted to be like, you know what? Someone has done it before you, and all I want to say is legacy. I think if you have the right mindset, if you decide that, you know what, it's not just about learning a language, because guess what? You can speak English and you can get by it, yes. But you know what? There's a certain part of the culture, the heritage, the history, and who you are that'll be lost if you don't speak your mother tongue. So I encourage and I implore people to really ask themselves why, find out your why, and just do it, a step at a time. Go out there and do it. So that'll be my...
Amazing. Now, those are brilliant parting words. Guys, you have been fantastic. Please do check Desta Africa group out online. They're on YouTube and they're also on Instagram.
That we teach Chi, we teach African history, languages, critical thinking, presentation skills, and we run termly workshops both in Accra, physical sessions, and we also have them online as well. So check us out at thedestinationafrica.com.
Go over there, subscribe, check out our stuff, and we'll be bringing a lot your way very, very soon.
Thank you. Well, no, you guys are getting a lot of love. A lot of people are saying that they've been encouraged. So thank you so much. For those of you who are not already following Team Bayayi, you know what to do right here on Instagram as well as on YouTube. You better hit that subscribe button. We're going to get our act together and actually start putting up more videos this year. Last year, we kind of got a bit tired and got a bit busy, but we're going to be doing some more. Don't worry. We're coming for you. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being an amazing audience. Your contributions have been wonderful. I hope you've gained value from this, and more than anything else, I hope that you're going to implement, as I am also going to be endeavoring to do. So yes. All right, have a good evening, guys. Thank you so much.
How do you say bye in Chi?
Enye true. And
hey.